we move forward to opening presentations. First keynote speaker is from Germany, Bochum, Ruhr University, Professor Ludger Pries, and his topic of speech or presentation will be migration, diversity, and citizenship. Mr. Pries, are you there?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will begin to share my screen.
Nihal Hocam.
Yeah. Maybe before starting, I could say a couple of words, and it's a great pleasure and honor for me to host you again in my university, Professor Pries. And that could be also interesting to give short introduction from himself. He is also chair of sociology organization, migration and participation since 2001 at that university. And his field of expertise includes sociology of work, organization and migration in comparative perspective, transnationalism and globalization research. He is teaching and doing many different researches all over the world, let's say. He's based in Germany, yes, but working in Spain, Mexico, Brazil, and at the United States. I had also a great chance to work and collaborate with him. Still, we have a very nice project coordination with the Germany and Turkey, and that would be great pleasure to listen to you right now in this migration phenomenon. Thank you so much for joining us. And after your presentation, maybe we could have a chance to get some questions or comments on this migration, diversity, and citizenship topics. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you, Ludger.
Thank you very much, Nihal, for this kind introduction. I very much appreciate and I feel honored to be here with so many distinguished academics from Turkey. I think Turkey and Germany, we have a long joint history in many, many aspects. And what Dr. Levent Sayın just mentioned about the shift from industrial work to knowledge work, I think also relates to the huge challenges that we have not only in transiting to a knowledge society, but also challenging the questions of migration, diversity, and citizenship. I am fully convinced that this is as important as the shift in work and employment, a topic that I am studying since 30 years. So I was asked to speak about migration, diversity, and citizenship. And actually, I think there's also a common interest, common perspectives in Germany and in Turkey, because we are currently doing this project that Nihal already mentioned, that is called Organized Violence and Forced Migration, a comparison of Mexico and Turkey. And to a certain extent, Turkey is in a similar situation as Mexico, because the European Union, from my point of view, is using Turkey as a kind of externalization of border control. Turkey has to do all the dirty work, let's say, in a similar way that Mexico also has to do this work for the United States. So I think this project is very interesting and timely due to the situation. But today I would like to speak about 3 points. I would like to make 3 messages. First, international migration is actually of increasing global relevance for all of us, in Turkey, in Germany, in Africa, in all over the world. Second, besides economic remittances, migration also causes transmittances, and I will explain this concept. Transmittances means migration leads to socio-cultural changes and inputs, not only to what Dr. Levent Sayın mentioned, the transition from Industry 4.0 to knowledge society, but migration also leads to substantial changes of societies. And the third point, this could be studied when we look at diversity, the ways of how people feel their belongings to societies or to social spaces, and how we should discuss the topic of citizenship and of rights of people. For the Syrian refugees in Turkey, this is a challenge and a problem. as well as in Germany, as I will demonstrate in a minute. So these are the three topics. Let's begin with the first one. Global relevance of international migration. I hope you can see it more or less clearly. At mid-year 2019, we had a stock of 272 million international migrants defined by the IOM and United Nations. But since 2015, the growth of migration is faster than the growth of the world population. This is interesting. And from 2010 to 2019, the growth of the world population was only 11%. The growth of international migration was 81%. And the growth of forced migration, of people who had to flee their country, is just 100%, is doubling. So we see that migration is of increasing relevance, and especially forced migration. Global migration is not only from one country to another, but is, at least here you have an idea of how complex migration is developing between the different regions. For instance, former Soviet Union, here we see the flows of migration, out-migration from Ukraine, for instance, going to other parts of the former Soviet Union, so we can follow the people and their moves. And I will not go into details, but we see the big continents, North America, Africa, etc., the bilateral flows of migrants between the top 50 sending and receiving countries in a 5-year period. This is only 5 years of migration movements. So imagine what happens in 20 or 30 years. This is just the period when the Syrian refugees arrived in Turkey and now are living in Turkey since 5 or 7 years. So, and this is getting increasingly complex. If you go to the website of this global migration data sheet, you will see this in a minute. And Turkey, for instance, it changed from a country of emigration of so-called guest workers to Germany to also receiving many of these migrants from, for instance, from the former Soviet Union and from MENA region in general. Okay, so migration is of increasing relevance for all countries all over the world. Even if China says, well, we are a nationhood, we are a nation state, we will control all movements, similar to Japan, for instance, this will not be possible in an open, fully globalized society. In a society of globalization and of knowledge economy, we cannot restrict our borders to national control. This will be impossible. So migration will be a huge movement and dynamics in the 21st century. What does this mean for remittances? Just a short look at remittances flows from to the low and middle income countries are likely to surpass the foreign direct investments in 2019. If we take the whole world as a whole. This is until 2019. If you follow the analysis of the United Nations, what happens currently due to the corona crisis, this is disastrous. Nobody speaks about it, but this is a disaster for the receiving countries because remittances flows went down by minimum 10%. And 1 of each 7 citizens of this globe is receiving and living, at least in part, from remittances. Remittances affect every 10th household all over the world. So Corona led to a downgrading of remittances of some 10%. This is disastrous for Africa, for Asian countries, for South America. And here we see remittances is increasing foreign direct investment was going down. The official development aid of the developed countries is very low as compared to the remittances. People are living and surviving in the global south, not because we, as the rich northern countries, are sending money, but because of the migration and the remittances that their people send back to their countries of origin. If we exclude China, from this graph, we see that even in 2015 already, remittances payments took over foreign direct investments. Yeah, so it's much more expressed even. Okay, so just to give a glimpse on the effect of remittances for specific countries. Not so much for Turkey, not so much for Germany, but take a look at Ukraine, Russian Federation. This is only Eastern Europe, and you see it's 15 billion in 2018 for Ukraine, and it's more than a third part of the gross domestic product of Kyrgyz Republic. Take Tajikistan, Moldova, Kosovo, etc. Many of these countries are working having people working in Turkey. And also working in Poland, let's say, in Ukrainians now try to come to Germany. The harvesting in Germany is not done by Polish and Romanian people, but now it's Ukrainian and people from Georgia. So the impact of remittances on national economies is crucial. But, and this is my argument as a sociologist, I'm not an economist, so I have to argue in favor of my discipline of sociology. And sociology, for me, I'm fully convinced sociology is the most important discipline all over the world. And I will try to demonstrate this. Because what is actually happening with the migration? It's not only economic flows of money, but it's also a socio-cultural flows of ideas, of concepts of living, of religion, of many aspects, of how entrepreneurship, of how to do business, etc., etc. I will not go into details. You have this, the literature here below. It's a very interesting study of Polish colleagues, sociologists, published in 2017, Migrants as Agents of Change, Social Remittances in an Enlarged European Union. And they measured and analyzed the impact of the Polish migration to UK, Netherlands, and Germany on the villages in Poland. And you know this from Turkey, the same. The huge impact of those people coming back as from guest working or from commuting and build their small business in the countryside or go into the cities, build up, for instance, call centers, etc., etc. We all know this, and this is a very detailed study on how people work in different communities, villages in Poland as a social, cultural impact and remittances from their migration tours. So it's not only economic remittances. And this is a basic argument that I presented at a conference in Princeton last year. And this was quite well received, I think, because the argument is there. And Peggy Levitt, for instance, from Harvard University, she began to speak about social remittances. People are not only sending back money, people are sending back social norms, values, worldviews, religion, etc., etc. And this is why we should not only focus on economic remittances, they are reduced to money transfers and to one-way flows. We all often don't know exactly the Hawala system in Muslim countries, which is so important for economic remittances as well. But my argument is we have to broaden our perspective from economic remittances to societal transmittances. This was my proposal that I presented in Princeton, and I will publish this in this year. So on the one hand side, very clear, we have economic dimension of remittances, flow of money, material goods, values, properties, etc. Second, we have political remittances out of migration. This is the impact on the political culture and on power relations of migrants. We did a huge research, for instance, on the Alevi impact, or on the impact of Alevi organizations all over the European Union on the Turkish government in allowing to organize Alevis in Turkey and naming the organizations as Alevi organizations. This was a leverage of the Alevi migrants in Germany, in France, in many other countries, when they influenced the advance reports of Turkey's EU admission process, which at this moment is a little bit frozen with the Erdogan government actually currently, but this is impact of political culture. We know this from Mexico. People want democratic structures in Mexico and not the old paternalism. Third aspect is cultural remittances, impact on collective belongings and knowledge. I can demonstrate you how, for instance, Catholic Mexican migrants go to the United States, work 5 or 10 years in the United States, and come back as evangelists, as Protestants. In the countryside in Mexico, this is a huge challenge, conflicts between different religious orientations based on migration dynamics. So cultural impacts in many, many aspects, entrepreneurship, social values, religion. And finally, social impacts or social remittances. This is change of beliefs, of norms, values, habits, and networks, social networks. Gender roles, for instance, this is a huge topic in countries like Mexico, where I studied this. Women are no longer ready to follow the machismo in Mexico. In sum, we have to extend our concept of economic remittances to a concept of societal transmittances. Societal transmittances as impacts of transnational mobilities and migration are multidimensional, as I demonstrated. They have multi-level effects on households or families, on communities or villages, on regions, on nation states, and in transnational spaces. They are influenced by different types of actors and brokers and by different values, motives, and habits. They are transformed in processes of imitating, motivating, innovating. There are many studies on this. And they have different kinds of beneficiaries, victims, and free riders. They could lead to resource drain, brain drain, physicians, for instance, Bulgarian, Romanian physicians to Germany, to resource gain or to resource circulation. In a transnationalism approach, which is my approach, societal transmittances are part of the increasing transnationalization of social spaces. Between Germany and Turkey, we have so many transnational social spaces. And at my chair in my team, I have a lot of people with Turkish roots. When somebody, the grandmother or grandfather dies in Turkey, people still are moving. Even under Corona conditions, people go to Turkey, participate in the social networking of extended families, etc., etc. And the other way around. Turkey is very present with all its difficulties, ethnicities, conflicts, internal conflicts between Kurds and Kemalists, etc., in Germany. So it's a social space that is transnational to a certain extent. I come to the last point, my third point. This is changing. These migration and societal transmittances change completely our understanding of diversity, of belongings, and what should be citizenship. Until now, citizenship in many countries is perceived just as a national container society, and citizenship as the passport of where you were born, use solely, or the nation state as defining what citizenship is. But things are getting more and more complicated. In Turkey, you feel this at this moment, how to manage the Syrian refugees. Should they be all citizens, Turkish citizenship? Should the citizenship be granted? What kind of rights should they have? And we have the same challenging discussions in Germany, and I will demonstrate this in a minute. Just following the studies of, let's say, I think there was one graph not showing up directly because it's too heavy. I hope it will work now. Yeah, this one. This is a very interesting study done by Stephen Vertovic. He's one of the most brilliant and famous migration scholar all over the world. He's a US American, worked in UK for 10 years, and now is director of the Max Planck Institute in Göttingen. Here, this is the direction. And he did a study for the city of Frankfurt, analyzing the diversity of citizenship holders in Frankfurt in the year 2008. Imagine what we have 80.5% Turkey, people of Turkish citizenship. Italian, Croatian, Poland, perhaps you couldn't read it carefully, but imagine all the variety of citizenship holders in Frankfurt. Frankfurt is the city in Germany with the highest percentage of foreigners in Germany, up to 40%. Up to 40% of people, it's a kind of banking account, etc. What Dr. Levent mentioned, the shift from industry to knowledge society. This is what we will experience, what Turkey also will experience. Istanbul already is a place for this. So this is the citizenship holders. And this is the citizenship, the status of the people living in Frankfurt. And in Germany, we have so many different kinds of citizenship. Citizenship is not just passport, German, yes or no. But here we have Niederlassungs. This is the right to live as a foreigner, to live in Germany, to work in Germany, to make, for instance, to found a business, etc., etc. People with the most rights, this is 30%, almost 30% Niederlassungserlaubnis. Even they could travel inside the European Union without any restriction. Work in France or in Spain, etc., etc. Niederlassungserlaubnis. This is, let's say, the strongest right for foreigners who don't hold the German citizenship, neither another European citizenship, and living in Germany. And it goes up to the refugees here on the bottom. This is a small part here. They are not recognized in Germany, but are tolerated because, for instance, we are not able as a country to send them back due to the danger they would face in their countries of origin. So all these are different categories of rights of foreigners in Germany. And if you take at least what I learned when we are in our research project, what I learned from Turkey, also in Turkey, we have at least 5 to 4 different status holders, groups for foreigners living in Turkey. Yeah. Okay. So diversity not only of citizenship, but also of rights of people, independent of their citizenship. I will not go into details. You can check it and I can send you the slides. This is a very interesting study that the group of Steve Vertovic did in Vancouver, in the city of Vancouver, analyzing the shift of people living. This is people living in Vancouver. And there were two questions. Where do you feel is your ethnicity or regional belonging? And so many people said, well, I feel American. This is here the, sorry, here the mouse. They say, well, we feel Americans. They feel Europeans, the green ones. The green ones feel Europeans. And then the second question was, what is your religious belonging? And then you see how the people feeling as Europeans develop fully different religious belongings, although mainly clustered in Christian religious belongings. Yeah? And this is the same question, the same people 20 years later, 2011. This was in 1991. And you see, without knowing exactly, or without, you see simply by image, we see the high differentiation of belongings. The same people now define themselves in a more differentiated way. And this is exactly what happens all over the world. Belongings differentiate with migration and with other tendencies of modernization, of industrial change, of shifting from industrial to knowledge society, etc. Finally, we have similar experiences in Germany, and this is radical. It's actually radical in only 2 generations. Here we find the members of churches in Germany in 1970, 45% Catholic, 49% Protestant, and only 1.4% others, or without religion, Muslims, everything. And now, 43 years later, 30% Catholic, 28% Protestant, others or without religion, 42. So the German religious structure changed completely. It's shifting completely. And finally, in nowadays, at the end, in December of 2019, even more decrease of Catholic and Protestants without any religion. This is secularization. This is secularization. 39%. Muslims, 5%. It's not a huge group, but it's a substantially important group in Germany, mainly from Turkey, but also from many other countries, African countries, etc. And we have 4% of other religions. Yeah? So we see diversity of religious orientations, of belongings is increasing, and nobody will stop this. Neither state policy, nothing. Now, to come to an end, I only will give two examples. If diversity, and if the diversity of belongings, religious, ethnic, etc. belongings is so much dynamic and so increasing, how to measure this? This is a challenge in Turkey as well. How to measure the different status groups of refugees, for instance, in Turkey, etc. How to measure? So this is the census of the United Kingdom, and we did a research with colleagues of Netherlands, UK, France, China, and Germany, looking at the official statistics and categories, how to measure the diversity of belongings and citizenship. And then in the United Kingdom census, we have six categories that are asked in the census. One is ethnicity, second religion, language. What is your mother language? Which other languages do you speak? What is the language at home when you are in your family? Citizenship. Do you have one citizenship or two or three? In Germany, you can have dual citizenship. We have a lot of people holding Turkish and German. You know all the conflicts on this. National identity. Even those having Indian citizenship could feel as Sikhs and not as Hindus. And the country of birth. These are the different categories. And here you see how well, at least you can imagine how even in England, Wales, and Scotland, different surveys only on the ethnicity question. This is only the part of the ethnicity question. Think of the other dimensions that I put here. So, and what we observe, if we compare the population census of 1991 to 2001 and 2011, what we observe is an increasing differentiation of the dimensions and of the categories in the dimensions of how to measure the belongings. And the interesting thing is, this differentiation is pushed by the people themselves, by the migrants. Because in England, in the UK, the migrants could make proposals to the population census. If they want to integrate a new category, they can make a proposal. And the increasing differentiation of the census is an outcome of the proposals of the people who feel that they are not recognized adequately in the census themselves. Finally, this is the German categories. So it's not only UK, it's the same in Germany. In Germany, since 2005 and our new immigration law, we differentiate between those people having been born in Germany, because in Germany, in nowadays, it's no longer jus sanguinis, but it's jus soli. So all people having been born in Germany have the opportunity after 6 years to apply for German citizenship. So we differentiate between born abroad or born in Germany. And then we differentiate citizenship, non-German citizens and German citizens. Because even German citizens could have been born in Australia or wherever because of being as an expatriate of a multinational company or a part of the diplomatic corps or whatsoever, or studying, etc. So we have this kind of different categories of status groups in Germany related to citizenship. I will not go into details, but I hope it becomes clear. My three messages, and with this I will end. International migration is of increasing global relevance, especially forced migration, and this will hold on during the next decades. Think of the armed conflicts that we are suffering at this moment, and that we are facing. China, US, Russia, etc., etc. So international migration will increase. Second, we have to think not only on the economic remittances side of these migration dynamics, but also on the transmittances aspects of this migration, because migration will change societies all over the world, in the countries of origin, in the countries of transit, and in the countries where people arrive. And third, this increases diversity by belongings and citizenship in all parts of the world. And we have to discuss as sociologists, politicians, demographers, etc., in a joint interdisciplinary effort. We have to analyze these processes, and we have to understand what's going on in order to make proposals for political managing of this. Although I'm fully convinced that politics are not able to manage this in a full extent. This was my message. Thanks for your attention. İlginiz için teşekkürler.
Ludger, thank you so much. It was very interesting and we get a lot. And if you don't mind, I have a couple of questions. We will try to finalize in a couple of minutes. And we have also one question that I could also link with my one of my questions. So it was interesting and I was very happy to hear that you also mentioned the societal transmittance. So it's not only the transfer of economic issues, but it's also transfer of culture, transfer of everything. Because this is human beings who is doing this transformation. And that is also one argument when we always say and discuss when migrants or refugees are coming to a new home, they are not only bringing their, vulnerabilities, they have also capacity and they bring this capacity. They are not only burdens. So if you change how you think in your mind, maybe you could change and affect the politics as well. But do you really make differences between migrants and refugees? So migrants, let's say the economic ones, economic migrants who move for economic reasons, but for the refugees who move because of war or etc., forced migrants. Do you make any differences between their social transmittance level or capacity? Because it makes a lot for host society and also for their hometown.
Okay, should I answer directly or?
Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you, Nihal, for this question. I think all migration dynamics all over the world are to a certain extent mixed migration flows. Even those who leave their country for economic reasons, not always are doing this voluntarily, but because of economic needs of the family, etc., etc. The Turkish people coming to Germany were not only happy and were not received quite well in Germany, they went for needs. So I think all migration is mixed migration. But obviously, if there's organized violence, if there's an ongoing protracted armed conflict, then migration will be of much more forced migration. We will have climate migration in the future much more than at this moment, although in Africa, due to drought, for instance, we already have much of forced migration, which is not based on organized violence, but on climate change. So I think even we have to differentiate our instruments to measure the different levels of causes or motives to migrate. And the social cultural composition of forced migrants is not the same as of voluntary economic migrants. But I think in general, we have all categories of economic migrants as well as all categories of forced migrants, from very low skilled to very high skilled, etc., etc. We have very specific analysis, for instance, of the qualification structures, and in Turkey you also of the 1 million Syrian refugees who arrived in Germany. And for instance, the Syrian refugees had a high average level of education as compared to the Iraqis, for instance, or the Afghans. So there's actually a difference. But in Germany, imagine Germany, due to its age structure, needs 300,000 net immigration minimum each year.
Yeah.
Japan, China, and other countries, I don't know exactly the demographic situation in Turkey, but many countries are facing this situation. So Germany actually needs 300 net immigration, 300,000 net immigrants each year. And we, when I was part of the German Expert Council for Migration and Integration in Berlin, we made calculations, where could these people come from which countries, based on the demographic dynamics in other countries. And this is Africa. The next 20 years, people will come to Germany from Africa. Even if many people in Germany, and we, racism, etc., even if many people still are not prepared for this, there's no alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about the effect of it? That was also a question from our friends. What do you think about the effect of pandemic, its impact on this transnationalism, or let's say the societal transmittance, because it's dropped out, right? How would
there are two tendencies, I think. One is the dramatic decrease in economic remittances that I mentioned. And if you go to the websites of World Bank, United Nations, you see this minimum 10% decrease. And this has an impact on a tenth of 1 billion people. So it's 100 million people. And second, many transnational movements and mobilities that were organized, for instance, in Europe, we are analyzing this at this moment, are cut down. Think of, for instance, nursing and the care work of elder people in Germany. Elder people in Germany normally are cared by Polish, Ukrainian, Romanian, Bulgarian women. And these flows stopped immediately with the Corona crisis. So this is a dramatic situation for the elder people, but especially for the transnational migrants as well. So, and we find similar dynamics in Latin America, for instance, etc.
And Ludger, let me ask my last question. I know it's not easy, but when we talk about the migration management, it's a kind of also diversity management. And you said that diversity is also something very crucial and important, that we should manage it. So what is your, as a sociological perspective, let me say, ideal model or politics when we talk one side, on the one side, the integration, some said that the social cohesion, or it's risky, maybe it will lead the assimilation, multiculturalism, intercultural society, etc., etc. We have always new trends. So what is your point of view on that? So how we could manage diversity?
I think, for instance, in Germany, we had a very restrictive assimilation policy during decades. People coming from Turkey, for instance, they have to adapt and to assimilate and to be good Germans. This is from my point of view, this is wrong. Then we had a little bit a romantic multiculturalism, for instance, in the Netherlands, which went wrong also. So the pendulum went from one extreme to another. And I think what we have to do is a balanced opening of societies and to offer all possibilities of economic, political, cultural, and social participation. This is what we in the Expert Council for Migration and Integration in Germany defined as the best policy, to open opportunities for participation of people. They should remain and live their own values, religions, etc. once they adapt to the minimum legal obligations in Germany. But then I think we should permit a lot of diversity, because there's no other option. And again, knowledge society is not possible without diversity of this kind of giving people the chance to live according to their own projects and preferences.
And maybe it's obvious that we should keep in mind that it's the fact that all systems and states are multicultural. So it's your turn that if you decide or not. It was first Merkel who said that, oh, it's not working, multiculturalism. So let's change it to forced integration models. Then Sarkozy and Cameron at that time, it was 2010, I think. Yeah, it was a trend in EU, but yeah, we will see what we get at the end after this refugee issue as well. Ludger, thank you so much. Once again, I was very appreciated, and it's very glad and honor for me to have you at our university. So cross fingers that after pandemic, we could invite you directly to Çanakkale. It's a wonderful city, and we have a very nice campus that you could enjoy. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. It was a great pleasure to be here. Unfortunately, my Turkish is so bad. When we began our project, I very much proposed to myself to learn at least the basics of Turkish, because I love the country, I love the language. It's a very nice sounding language, and I love the people. I know many people, and all very kind people. So thank you very much for inviting me, having invited me, and yes, I hope that we will see in live in under better conditions.
Yeah.
So teşekkürler.